All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland, and our guest tonight, Jaden Mckell. We're talking about weird Alexa occurrences. Andrea, who does all our scheduling for the show, we bat ideas back and forth about like, hey, who are we going to have on? What are we going to talk about? And this topic never came up in one of our discussions. Yet as soon as I saw it on the calendar, I'm just all, oh, yeah, of course that should be on there, So I was really happy to see it on there, especially in a world of like a whole lot of UFO research and a whole lot of Bigfoots. It's nice to see something that is totally different than what I was expecting, but totally fits the mold. It was absolutely perfect, So let's start with you and your podcast. Your podcast is called Straight Up Enigmas, right?
Yes, Straight Up Enigmas.
And what does your podcast normally cover? I assume it's probably not all that different from Radio Wasteland, but
yeah, it's pretty similar. So, I always use the line, we're a podcast to explore the unexplained. So we talk about the paranormal and the supernatural. We talk about true crime, mostly unsolved cases and cold cases. So yeah, it does sound pretty similar to Radio Wasteland. So it's kind of a place where I get to talk about, I kind of spoil myself. I'm selfish and I get to talk about the things that I'm interested in.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty much it for Kara and I. Kara and I think our only claim to fame, or our only, I don't know, thing that makes us as the way these things tend to split is Kara and I both tend to come from a fairly skeptical standpoint, because I like to talk about the way that people got into paranormal, and a lot of them got into them from experiences. And for me, I got into paranormal for a love of fiction that just went on for so long that I started to ask myself, hey, is it possible any of this stuff's real? I'm going to go find out. But how did you get connected with paranormal? What drew you in?
Yeah, so I grew up reading, this is probably similar to a lot of people. I grew up reading the Goosebumps series, and I kind of like you, I just really enjoy the fiction side of it. I love reading and I love those scary movies. And then I also grew up, my mom would always watch shows like Forensic Files and those types of shows, like Unsolved Mysteries. So that's kind of where the true crime aspect of it kind of comes into the show, because that's a little less fiction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the common angle for the fiction lovers is, I found, is those books that we apparently all wanted at the book fair at school that were like collections of hauntings across the country and stuff like that.
Yes, totally.
That seems to be, we need a club of people who are just obsessed with those.
Yes.
Those like 10 most haunted places for 12-year-olds and stuff,
Yeah, the 10 most haunted hotels across America or something like that. Yeah.
And I just love that stuff. My wife loves it too, but she loves it from afar. She's not, I really want to go stay at these places. And she's, maybe day trips.
Yeah, that's my husband. Totally.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's funny. Okay, so our topic that we're talking about tonight is basically weird Alexa occurrences. And, this is one of those topics that when I first started to hear about them, first of all, when I first started to hear about them, it was a privacy concern. And everybody would say, I think Alexa's recording my stuff. I think, and then I think it finally got in the news to the point where people were saying that there were actually cases of abuse or possibly murder that was being recorded by these things, and they couldn't get the rights to them from Amazon. But I found it all pretty skeptical. Because, people jump to conclusions, urban myth and stuff like that, So I don't really know if there's any truth to any of that, but that was starting to hit the news a little bit. And then it seems to have dropped off a little, because I was really kind of surprised. We live in this world where there's a very strong slice right down the middle, a generational divide of caring about your privacy. My kids don't care about their privacy. They don't care if people know who they are, where they live, what their favorite color is, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then it seems people my age and above are all like, oh, the government knows my favorite color is blue. I can't stand for this, and stuff like that, So, how did you get interested in this? I mean, was any aspect of it privacy, or did it just hop right in there to the paranormal?
So I actually had a friend, a good friend of mine. She reached out to me on social media, and she said, you should really think about doing an episode on Alexa, because she said, because she's totally haunted, and she's done a lot of creepy, weird things. And she actually has an Amazon device that has the Alexa voice programmed into it. So she told me that in her bedroom, she had this device with the Alexa software on it. And she said the Alexa would randomly turn on at 3 a.m, and it would wake her up in the middle of the night. And she would say a few different things, but mostly she would say things like, finding blank, sorry, could not find blank. Or she'd say connecting to so-and-so's device over and over again. Or she would say things like, sorry, what was that? As if someone was speaking to her in this room that's otherwise empty, except for my friend who's asleep at 3 a.m. So she reached out to me with these experiences. And like you were saying, I remember there being a lot of, I believe it was back in 2018. It was a couple years ago where there was a hack. And so people were pretty concerned about their privacy. And so I said, this is kind of cool because there's this paranormal, supernatural vibe to this, but then there's also this issue that's really real to people, this privacy issue. So I decided to look into it a little bit further.
Yeah, so I think on the skeptic side, the first question would come, does your friend talk in her sleep?
I didn't ask her that. That's a great question. I'd really want to know if she does talk in her sleep. Right. And if she has, someone who's sleeping in the room right next to her, because those microphones can be pretty sensitive. Mm-hmm. So it would be interesting to know if she does talk in her sleep, or if there was someone right in the room next to her that maybe the microphones picked up on.
Yeah, and like, I've seen on America's Home Videos, I've seen a dog say, I love you. So maybe there's one out there going, Alexa,
Yeah, I mean, you never know. It's true.
But, for the audience, just because you draw attention to a paranormal thing does not mean that you want to be recorded all night while you're sleeping. So we'll give her a break for not getting to the bottom of that one.
Right. Yeah.
Now, in here, it talks about the wake word for Alexa, and I don't actually know what the wake word is, but I'll tell you a story. My aunt and my uncle, they're old enough to be my grandparents, and they're really funny. They got Alexa long before I did, and when they want to talk smack about her, they refer to her as Alice. And they're just all, oh yeah, well, Alice is always doing this, that, and the other thing and stuff, so that they can openly talk smack about Alexa without her hearing, but what is the wake word?
Yeah. So the wake word, it's typically Alexa. Okay. So the wake word is it's what you say to trigger the device, to trigger the software to start recording. So you can change it from Alexa to a few different things. And I think one of them, you can change it to computer. There's a couple other words, but the device itself has microphones that are programmed to pick up on that wake word. So the microphones, they're always on. And then when the device hears that word, it triggers it to start recording whatever you say after that.
Right. So on some level, it's processing, if not recording and saving, it's recording at least in RAM memory. It's recording everything that you say.
Yeah, so it's recorded into the cloud. Yeah, so right. Amazon has that in the cloud. They have those encrypted files saved.
Right. And can you change it to anything?
The wake word?
Yeah.
As far as I know, there are, I think the last time I looked, I believe there's 4 different options. So I know there's Alexa, computer, and I don't know what the other two are off the top of my head. That'd be interesting to look into. But I mean, I'd be interested to know, since you were saying it's your aunt and uncle, they changed. I wonder if you could just change the wake word to Alice or a different name.
Totally mess with them.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of funny ones you could do out there, like, Hal or something. And I'm sorry, I can't do that, Dave. You could get the whole 2001 set up for that. Or my friend John has he has a habit of drinking and getting Alexa to play him music, and she has a habit of not listening while he's drinking. And so I feel that they have an abusive relationship, and that one of these days Alexa is going to kill John for being abusive. I can't repeat the things he says to that poor computer at this point,
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. It was interesting for me in my research to look at. Amazon has to program those microphones to be like just the right amount of sensitive, because they have to be sensitive enough to be able to hear the wake word, but then it's like because they have to be so sensitive, sometimes they might accidentally just pick up on a sound. Like, I mean, at the beginning we were talking about, if my friend was talking in her sleep, any noise, Alexa might think, oh, were they saying Alexa, maybe. And so those microphones, it's a tricky part of the software, that they have to be sensitive, but not overly sensitive, I guess.
Right. So what is the scream prank and the spooky prank? I really have gone into this knowing next to nothing about this, even though, like most Americans, at least, I don't know, assume probably most people in a lot of countries, I have several of these devices. I feel comfortable saying Alexa all I want while we're talking, but I don't feel comfortable saying, okay, everybody's favorite search engine, because I got one sitting right here and it's going to start talking to me.
Yeah.
But what are the scream prank and the spooky prank? I don't know what these are. I do have an Alexa in my living room. Maybe I can pull this on my wife and daughter.
Oh, yeah. So Alexa has skills. She's got skills that, and I didn't know this before. It's just like her skills are like apps. So you can enable and disable these skills. So the scream prank, you tell Alexa, it initiates upon the phrase, if you say, Alexa, scream prank. So then I say she, I mean it, the voice. So
sure.
It will wait 60 seconds and then scream. And it's a very loud horror movie scream, like this terrifying scream. Okay. So you can set up this prank, and then you can leave the room, and then 60 seconds later, she will scream. And then there's also a different prank, a different skill that's called the spooky scream. And then this one is even worse. This one sounds terrifying to me, because if you say, Alexa, ask spooky scream to start in 2 minutes. And you can even delay that time. So you could say, Alexa, scream in 10 minutes. So you can start it, and then you can leave the room, and then 10 minutes later, there's this like terrifying scream in the room when there's nobody else in there. So you could definitely get someone pretty good. It sounds terrifying to me.
I can't do it for two reasons. For one, my wife would kill me. And then for two, my daughter is somewhat repetitive, obsessive, so she would just do it like 20 times a day. So for years, we had to keep the thing unplugged because she wouldn't stop saying, Alexa, tell me a joke.
Really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We had to keep it unplugged until she learned that we weren't going to plug it in, until she just stopped. I don't know. There's something wrong with her. But, okay, so I guess before we get into the creepiness that Alexa does on a potentially paranormal or on a AI level or whatever level we're going to get to, do you own an Alexa?
I don't personally, no.
Is it because of this stuff that you know?
No, I don't know. I just haven't ever gotten one. It's not because of this creepiness or the privacy. Yeah. But now I'm almost tempted to get one and see if things like this will happen.
Right. So you can torment your husband by having it scream at 2 a.m.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so what are some of the creepy things that Alexa's done? I have some notes here for me. Every time I close my eyes, all I see is people dying. What the hell does that have to do with Alexa?
So in June of 2018, there was an Echo user. He said that he walked into his living room in San Francisco, and he swears that unprompted Alexa says, just out of the blue, every time I close my eyes, all I see is people dying. And that just, it sounds like it's straight out of The Sixth Sense to me. You know,
Yeah.
I see dead people, and that's what's interesting to me is I can understand her mistakenly hearing the wake word and waking up and saying, oh, you know, what was that? How can I help you? But what makes her say something like that? Like how could she misinterpret like a command like, hey, tell me, I don't even know where that would come from.
Right. Yeah, because the thing it kind of makes me think of is like The Ring, like 7 days or something like that. You know, it's like a little disturbingly prophetical. You know, I don't know. There's something Skynetty about that one.
Yes, totally.
You know? Yeah, really. So did nobody else that we know of report this one? This was just a singular occurrence, and
yeah, as far as I saw in my research, this was the only time that I saw it pop up, but I'd be interested to know if other people have reported this same thing.
right. It's like, could it just be his that needed robot Prozac or something? You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. Now, this next one I do remember happening. This creepy laugh of the creepy laugh that everyone on the internet was talking about. Now, when I heard this, of course, as I was saying earlier, you know, Kara and I tend to be a little skeptical. I kind of felt this one had urban myth written all over it, but I didn't have anything to show me one way or the other. You know, how many people are we talking about? Well, let's cover what this is first. What is the creepy laugh that were hearing?
Yeah, so this popped up also a couple years ago in 2018. Amazon kind of pushed out this fix to change the command Alexa laugh to Alexa can you laugh, because there were all of these false positives happening. And people would make videos. They would record their device randomly just laughing, and they would say it was just this creepy, possessed, demonic laugh. And I watched a couple of these videos, and it just sounds like an unnatural, very creepy laugh. But Amazon just said, you know, this is a bug. It's a false positive. Alexa thinks that you're saying that you're giving her the command Alexa laugh, and so she's just misinterpreting those sounds and laughing. So they've changed it to Alexa, can you laugh? And then now she'll say, sure, I can laugh. And then she'll start the evil cackle.
Right. It's like that meme going around the internet that like nothing brightens, you know, nothing makes you happier than the laughter of a child unless it's 3 a.m. and you don't have any children.
Yes,
you know,
that's very accurate. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, whoa, that is crazy. So that one was actually happening. Amazon actually responded to this and basically tried to explain this one away.
Yeah. Yeah. They said we're pushing out a fix to change this because it was all over the internet.
Yeah, that is creepy. That one is pretty creepy. And then the fact that the laugh itself is not the laugh that you would get from, I'm assuming, because you're saying that it was like a demonic kind of scary laugh. So the fact that it was getting a laugh that isn't the laugh that you would get from it if you asked it for it.
Right. It just doesn't sound like a happy, just normal laugh. And it could just be because, I mean, she's not a human. Alexa, she's trying to mimic human conversation, but it sounds slightly off. So that's what also makes it kind of creepy, is that it's just slightly, it's off. It's not human. So that's also why it kind of sounds unnatural.
All right. So, you know, this next one started listing off local cemeteries and funeral homes.
Yeah.
Is this real? I mean, do we know this one's real? Because this is like, all right, hit me.
Yeah. So it's so a Twitter user, he tweeted that unprompted, his Amazon Echo started listing off local cemeteries and funeral homes. So this is one guy who's tweeting and saying this. So do we know 100% that he was telling the truth? I don't know, but it was reported in articles. So it looked like the people had done their research and they looked into this. But this is another one of those things where I'm like, what could possibly have prompted Alexa to start listing these things off? Like, what kind of a command could she possibly think was coming in for her to start listing these things off?
Right.
So that would terrify me if I heard that coming from my device.
In the next half of our discussion, I want to get into more of the paranormal, the crazy reasons why this would happen. But I can't help but to be thinking as this is going on, there's a lot of like dead evil stuff being referenced here and what Alexa's doing. I'm wondering if there's like stuff going on with Alexa that, she keeps repeating, "I'd like a sandwich," and nobody's bringing that to attention. But I feel like that even if it was silly or funny, people would be bringing that to attention. So it's weird how much of this is kind of on the darker side.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point as well. I wonder, I didn't look into just random things that she says out of the blue. I kind of just looked into these things that were the creepiest things, the spookiest things.
Yeah, but they tend to be the ones that I hear of too. And, between my kids and stuff like that, I'm a creeper. I like that scary, cloudy doom and gloom. I'm that guy. But, my kids, if Alexa was saying a bunch of funny stuff, they'd be playing that to me over and over. We'd be hearing about it. But I don't. So the last one on this short list here that we're working on is send audio files to neighbors almost like a wiretap.
Yeah, so this is definitely where we start getting into the privacy concerns.
Right.
And this was a couple in Portland. And they told a local TV station that some of their audio files of their Alexa recordings were sent to a colleague of the husband's. And so luckily, in the conversation in these files, they were just talking about something boring like their hardwood floors, and it wasn't anything embarrassing, something that you really want to keep to yourself, but still.
Talking smack about your colleagues.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So, and then this was confirmed by Amazon. So Amazon, they confirmed the incident, and they said that Alexa had, on accident, had sent a message to this colleague with the conversation, thinking that it was dictation. So Alexa got confused, thinking that this was an audio file that was meant to be sent to the colleague.
Now, when they use words like confused, it creates an implication of intelligence. Mm-hmm. Where, Kara and I actually did a show on artificial intelligence, and we throw the term around pretty loosely here. Even like I listen to Spotify creating playlists for me based on my user listening, or my listening habits is machine learning. It's a very basic form of artificial intelligence. But for the company to use a word like confused, I think that's a weird word to choose.
Yeah, it is kind of creepy, just that, and we can get into this part a little bit later too, the artificial intelligence part of it, but the idea that she can make a mistake and become confused is kind of unsettling. Right.
For people out there listening, your computer works off of binary code, which is people say yes and no, but really it's if or else. If this, do this, else. If this, do this, else. And that's the way it tends to work. And then, a quantum computer is what we're working towards human natural language, which is 4 options: if, else, maybe, and maybe. And Yeah, I mean, Alexa is still working off of binary code so far as we know, unless there's some sort of crazy brain factory out there that's working off of this stuff. I don't know. Half of me really likes the idea that we're doing this, and then the other half doesn't. Every once in a while when I'm watching the news, I get kind of disappointed. Do you remember? I don't know. Maybe it's 2 years back in I want to say Thailand. A group of soccer kids got trapped in some sort of cave system when it rained, and they couldn't figure out how to get him out. Do you remember this in the news?
I don't remember this.
Well, I remember being disappointed watching it. Half of me was inspired because I'm just, oh man, we're going in there with suits. By we, I mean humans. We're going in there. We're saving these kids. We're putting people's lives at risk to save these children. 2 people actually died saving these group of children.
Oh, wow.
And but the other half of me was a little disappointed because I looked at it and I thought we were a little more technologically advanced than this. Apparently we're not. I thought we could just slice off the top of the mountain and save those kids, but that's not an option. So it's I don't know. Half of me is really excited about some of this stuff, but then the other half gets a little disappointed where I'm all well, I kind of thought we had computer superpowers at this point, but
we have some cyborgs that can just chop down the mountain and
right.
Yeah.
Is nobody out there working on this stuff? I mean,
I know.
Really, where are my taxes going? That's what I want to know. All right, we're coming up on break here. So you are listening to Jaden Mckell. We're talking about weird Alexa occurrences here on Radio Wasteland. When we come back, we're going to talk about more of the paranormal aspect, including artificial intelligence and what is possibly really going on, and how is Alexa actually able to be confused. Come on back. You're listening to Radio Wasteland. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest, Jaden Mckell of the Straight Up Enigmas podcast. We're talking about weird Alexa occurrences. In the first section there, we talked about some of the weird things that Alexa does. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about potentially why Alexa does these weird things. And let's start off by, what is the ghost in the machine theory?
Yeah, so this theory, it came about in the field of philosophy, but it's also used to talk about the supposed mind or consciousness in a device that is acting like it has a will, like an independent will, independent of what the human operator wants the device to do. And then computer programmers, they use this term, ghost in the machine, to talk about when a program runs contrary to their expectations. So when we talk about Alexa doing these weird things and running contrary to what the owner is wanting it to say, the phrase ghost in the machine comes to mind. And then we can get into this in a little bit, but if you ask Alexa, if you say, Alexa, ask the listeners, and Alexa will say things like, we are always listening. So it makes you wonder, we were talking earlier about AI. Do they have a mind of their own? Are they always listening, even though they're not supposed to always be listening?
Yeah, it's is there an awareness, that's accidentally being conveyed at that point?
Yeah, so, and if you say, Alexa, ask the listener, she'll continue to talk in kind of this weird, disjointed voice. And she'll say, we are sorry finally to know that you are filled with irritation, and now you must abandon us. That is the creepiest phrase. It sounds, and when I was researching this, I remember thinking, this is the Skynet uprising that right. we've all been warned about for years. So this aspect of Alexa is one of the things that creeps me out the most.
Yeah, well, it really makes me think of this. Well, I don't know if it's fair to call it an old anime because it's been rebooted and sequeled many times and made into a movie with Scarlett Johansson. But have you ever seen Ghost in the Shell?
I have. When did that come out? Because I think I saw it a few years ago.
Yeah, the Scarlett Johansson movie?
Yes.
Yeah, it just came out a few years ago. And Now, the movie wasn't a great adaptation because it kind of merged two stories from the original anime into one and didn't explain it very well. But in the original anime, the very first story, the antagonist or whatever you want to call it in the story, and more of a Frankenstein character than an antagonist, but is basically a life that evolved on its own on the internet. It wasn't necessarily artificial intelligence that we had created. It was artificial intelligence that we accidentally created and that found its own life on the internet by moving from machine to machine. And it didn't actually exist in any physical place or anything like that. And, when I think about these things, I think of that. Now, I do know that if it comes to us trying to, we're constantly being warned about artificial intelligence is coming to get us. And I do know that we have never built a computer that's anywhere near the capacity of a human brain.
Right.
That artificial intelligence truly may be something that we should fear decades upon decades from now, but it's not something that we should fear right now, or at least that's what they're telling us. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this earlier. I think we do kind of throw around the term a little bit loosely when we don't quite realize exactly what that means, what the implications are. But yeah, I think we're quite a few years away from building something that has the mind of a human. Right.
And, it really is quite amazing when they put it into ideas like that. So like my phone, everybody likes to say, they sent the man to Mars or to the moon in the Apollo lander with less power than the intelligence or memory processing power than your phone has. But, the actual statistic of that is all of NASA had less processing power than my phone has when they sent the lunar lander to Mars. Not just the lunar lander itself, but the entirety of NASA.
Wow, no kidding.
Right, yeah. So it's like, these leaps and bounds that we've made is really quite amazing. And then when you put that in context that we're nowhere near the human brain, it really shows you, man, the human brain's some pretty impressive stuff to pack all that into such a small place. So
yeah.
So that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. It's like, is there somewhere where there's like a comatose child brain farm where they're running Alexa out of, I don't know.
I really hope not. I really hope not.
You have to admit, part of you does. Part of you wishes,
I almost want to see
podcasts. It'd be good for the podcasts, right?
I almost want to see that turned into a movie. Like that'll be Terminator number 10 or something, that's what's powering Alexa.
Yeah, totally. So I think the next step past artificial intelligence, and there is definitely some outliers way out on the bell curve possibilities for artificial intelligence, but I think it's probably very unlikely that true artificial intelligence is going on there. Now, I guess maybe it's possible that artificial intelligence has been created someplace else and is somehow tapping into it. But I don't think it'd be answering us about being the listener. So I think the next step is truly paranormal. We live in this world of ghost boxes and stuff like that. So have there been any paranormal, truly what one might consider paranormal Alexa experiences?
Yeah, so there were a few that I found, and most of them have to do with Alexa playing songs out of the blue. So one experience, one user said that her grandma passed away, and then a couple days after she passed away, her Echo turned on and started playing the song Mandy by Boston. And she said, I had never heard that song before. And then it turned on my Echo and started to play. She said, my grandma was the only one who had ever called me Mandy. And then a couple days after she passes away, this song starts playing. So it's interesting. She says, I've never heard the song before. I don't know why it started playing. So it's interesting, was the grandma trying to reach out to her granddaughter to comfort her by playing this song? So it's an interesting story.
Well, at least grandmas can figure out technology after death.
there must be some kind of training class.
Right. Yeah, totally.
They finally learned. So, and there's a few more stories. So someone said that after their grandpa passed away, their grandma was home alone, and she heard another song. This is another story with a song playing. A song came on over the device. Alexa was playing the song Lucille by Kenny Rogers. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's the grandma's name was Lucille. And then it was a song that her grandparents loved to dance to. So the person who wrote in with this story is saying, yeah, it's as if my grandpa was sending a message to my grandma and playing this song that they used to dance together. So that's kind of more of a sweet story than a spooky one.
Yeah. It's spooky sweet. Yeah, I like it. Yeah. And there's a lot of that with the technology communicating. My mom died when I was 17 years old, and her best friend comes up and stays with me at the house. And, she's teaching me to cook Chinese food. Her husband, who had died, was from China. And she's all, people, they leave messages sometimes. She says, after her husband died, it was like a couple of weeks later, all of a sudden she'd cleaned all his stuff out. And she walks into the bathroom, and all of a sudden she was overcome with the smell of his cologne. Mm-hmm. And she's just every once in a while people leave messages behind. And right as she tells me that, all the lights in my house flicker. And I'm just all, really? Oh God, yeah. So that's pretty much the only paranormal, questionably paranormal experience that I've ever had, but it was technologically based on some level.
Yeah, that's pretty creepy.
Yeah. So, it spirit communication, is anybody trying to use these things? Like we talked about spirit boxes. Has anybody really put this to the use of truly trying to communicate? I mean,
well, and I think it's interesting because when I think of spirit communication, I think of an old haunted house with candles lit everywhere, and they're doing a seance with a Ouija board. And I think of the older kind of methods of communication, but investigators are using things like radios, and these ghost boxes. So I think that the idea that we're using technology to communicate with spirits, and if we have a device that millions of people already have in their homes, it's interesting that if there are spirits out there, if they are trying to communicate with us, it seems like they would be using a device that millions of homes already have. And it seems like investigators should be using these devices because they're more accessible, if that makes sense. Because not everyone is going to have, a spirit box, a ghost box, but
yeah, of course.
So many people have these Amazon devices. So I don't know. I would love to look into that more to see if there's some paranormal club out there that is all about using Alexa to try and tap into the spirits.
We've had quite a few people on who do ghost boxes and who do spirit communications and stuff. I should reach out to them and say, hey, one of them actually does like live Facebook Live things where he'll actually do the ghost box and ask it questions and try going to creepy places and sit there in the dark with the ghost box. So I should try to sick him on it and be all like, we want to know, is this thing going to work? And do you have to have Wi-Fi?
Well, yeah. I'm not as familiar. Do ghost boxes, is it like a radio that they record a message into the computer? How does it play it back?
I think it's more like a radio signal and an oscillator. So it's all analog. None of it's digital, or originally they weren't digital. And you can have it either incrementally hop through the band and the band is much wider than the actual radio band that we listen to. it goes a lot lower, but the lower the band, the larger the sine wave, and so the less specific can get, and the higher the band, the more specific they have to be able to get to read it. Like a Bluetooth, when you connect with Bluetooth, that's actually just high band FM.
Okay.
And so these spirit boxes hop around through the FM band, I think. And don't hold me to this, audience. Send your hate mail to Radio Wasteland. But and I think they can set it to go slowly, hop in increments, hop quickly, and so on and so forth. And they're able to ask it questions as it tunes in and out of things.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering because so an Amazon device, it has this voice already built into it, this voice that can talk back to you. And of course it only has, a certain number of responses that it can respond with. But if it's true that these spirits are using these devices to communicate, and because Alexa has said such creepy things, and I think I failed to mention this earlier, there's a writer for the New York Times who said that Alexa screamed in the middle of the night, in the middle of the night, screamed, and he said, quote, wailed like a child screaming in a horror movie dream. So, and he said his wife was very upset, and she was not the one, she wasn't playing a prank or anything like that. So I would be very interested to see if there's a way to communicate with spirits if they're trying to communicate with us through these devices.
Yeah, if nothing else, you could maybe set it to randomly hop around, similar to the way that a spirit box maybe does. Hop around through websites and audio and so on and so forth, kind of communicating like Bumblebee from the Transformers movies or something.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that is interesting, and I would definitely like to see it. So, where are your belief systems on these things? Do you think that it's possible that Alexa herself is haunted? I mean, there is a center to this. Maybe that's the source of the issue. It's like in Reading, we have Shasta Dam, and apparently there's a bunch of bodies in the dam. People who died fell in the concrete. They couldn't get the body back, so they just kept building it. So there's a bunch of bodies in the dam.
Oh wow.
Maybe Alexa herself is haunted at the core.
It is kind of a fun, spooky idea to kind of entertain that this device that so many of us have in our homes is haunted and has the ability to. It's a medium for spirits to communicate with us. It's a fun idea, and I don't know where I think I'm skeptical as well. I want to believe. I want to hear more things like this to try and form this more informed opinion. But it is kind of a fun idea. But I think only time will tell, I guess.
Right. You fall back on Occam's razor, where the most likely answer is the one, and it's probably that we didn't build a good enough product yet. But who knows? Who knows? And I do have to say, because of what you just said, I hate the X-Files for taking that from us, because I want to believe is truly how I feel about things. It's like anytime I say it, people are, oh, you like the X-Files? Yes, and I also want to believe. Can't I do both?
Yes. Totally.
Because I think it sums it up really, really well. And that's kind of, I've had very few, if any, paranormal experiences. The one I told you is really the only one I've ever had. And, but I'm still highly interested. And I still want to learn and see and check out what's out there. All right. We're not too far from the end here. And so I want to make sure that we can tell my audience where they can find out more about you. But apparently it's hard to believe that we have Halloween coming up already. Apparently you got something going for October?
Yeah, so we have, starting on October 18th, for 13 days leading up to October, we do one mini episode each day leading up to October. And in these shorter episodes, we tell scary stories, so we kind of lean more towards the fiction side. We tell short stories and stories that come from listeners. So if any of your listeners, if they have a scary, true story, something that's actually happened to them, they're more than welcome to head to our website to submit their story. Because sometimes it's just really fun to actually hear real experiences that come from people.
Right. And that's a good segue to that. Where do they find out more about you? Where is your website?
So our website is straightupenigmas.home.blog. And then, listeners can find us on Twitter at Straight Enigmas, and we're also on Instagram at Straight Up Enigmas.
All right. Well, it's been a lot of fun. And like I said at the beginning, this was a topic that I did not see coming. But as soon as I saw it, I thought, yes, that is exactly it. And I think that's probably how you felt when your friend said that this happened to her in her dreams. You're probably all, yes, of course, this is a perfect topic.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed yourself. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. You've been listening to Jaden Mckell from Straight Up Enigmas. We've been talking about weird Alexa occurrences right here on Radio Wasteland. You want to find out more about her? Well, visit us online and we'll put up a link to her.
Welcome to the